Welcome to For the Love of Books, a podcast by North Lanarkshire Libraries. Hi everyone, welcome back to the North Lanarkshire Libraries podcast For the Love of Books. My name is Chris Wilson, the E-Services Librarian, and for today's episode in the podcast, I thought we'd give a little bit of a focus on our digital team because they do some fantastic work, and it's something that I think that as a library service we need to shout out about and let everybody know how fantastic the work is that they are doing. So today we have got some guests from that team, Phyllis and Hilary, who have both been on the podcast before, and they are going to tell you a little bit of the work that they have been doing, in particular with work to around Code Club, family history, and some of the courses that are available through their service as well that you can get involved in too. So do listen up and hear what they've got to say about what they've been getting involved with recently, and see if it's anything that you might be interested in taking part in as well. So thanks, Hilary and Phyllis, for joining me today on our podcast to talk about all things in the digital team. So it's great to have you guys. And I thought we'd kick off by talking about one of the events that I think is one of the most exciting ones at the moment that we do, and it's the Code Club. Obviously, we spoke about it in previous podcasts a little bit as well. Where have we got some Code Clubs running at the moment, Hilary?
So in South area, we've got our club re-established in Wishaw, and for the first time ever, we have been running a proper Code Club here in Motherwell as well.
Fantastic.
So it's great to see that one up and running finally. So we've got two running in South. Phyllis, North area.
We have got two on alternate weeks in Coatbridge.
Yeah.
And we will be starting the Cumbernauld one just after the October holidays.
Fantastic. So there's going to be loads and loads of opportunities for kids to get into to do coding, which is fantastic. What's some of the most interesting projects that you have seen lately that some of the groups have been doing that you have been involved in? Hilary, have you got any that you've got to kind of mention?
Well, the Motherwell, I've been helping out in the Motherwell group, and we've used what were a new set of materials to me. I know Phyllis has used them before, but anytime I've run it, I've always used one set of materials, and we took the chance to kind of go to some of the newer stuff. So the other week, there's one called Silly Eyes.
Yeah,
and
that's the one I was thinking about as well.
The task that they're set is to design and create a character with silly eyes that follows the mouse around the screen.
Fantastic.
And I think it's the first time you really get the chance to see just how creative and crazy the young people in the Code Club could be. They're encouraged to add other sort of adornments to their characters as well. So, we had the hats changing colour. We had somebody found the kind of whirl. If you hover the mouse over it, the whole character like starts to spiral and making swirly things, and so it was great fun, and it's so much fun as well to hear the young people sort of laughing with each other, as well as they're creating and getting really like caught up in what they're creating. So I really enjoyed that one.
I think that's you've touched on one of the things here that I think is a bit of a hidden gem of the Code Clubs, because I think some people might think of coding being quite an individual task or thing to do, but actually in the Code Clubs it is quite a cooperative thing and collaborative thing that they're doing sort of together and seeing each other's projects and learning together, basically, aren't they?
Yeah, and you watch that week one, people kind of work on their own, or maybe if they already know somebody in the Code Club, they'll have a wee chat with them kind of thing. But very quickly, I always find, I'm not sure Phyllis is the same, that that peer support starts.
Yeah.
Somebody works out how to do something, and they then either get nudged by somebody else and say, "How did you do that?" or somebody will say, "I'm stuck," and sometimes it's the most, I don't know if this is going to sound right, but it's sometimes the most unlikely candidates that end up doing the most peer support. So sometimes it can be, parents will bring themselves. They're really quiet. They don't talk to anybody. They don't do anything. And within a couple of weeks, they're the authority in the group and the go-to person. And from a staffing perspective, it's brilliant because
you can leave them to it.
Yeah. This is it. And the number of staff have always sort of said to me, "Oh, I couldn't possibly do that because I don't know how to code it." And I always sort of say to them, actually, you need to get kind of like little basics of it, but and problems that help people problem solve. But actually, very often, you just turn the question back and then turn the question out to the whole group if need be. And somebody has worked it out or worked something, and you see that thought and reasoning process develop in it as well.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the fantastic things about it. Phyllis, have you seen any great projects other than the googly eyes ones that we've mentioned about there?
I like when they're designing games, and they'll start off with exactly the same on the screen, and like Hilary was saying, by the time it gets to the end of it, you couldn't imagine that they had started off with the same thing on the screen, because they have such different ideas and such different ways of putting their ideas across. That it's amazing to see, and it's great to watch them coming out of the shell over the few weeks.
Yeah, and again, that's probably another one of those hidden things as well, because I think probably people think Code Club might not be quite as creative and fun as that a little bit, but actually there is a lot of creativity required in it to kind of put together the sprites and things like that for moving about the screen and stuff. And I think again that's another wee kind of hidden gem about it as well, isn't it?
Yeah. And Chris, one of the early exercises in this set was to get two characters to kind of talk to each other and tell each other jokes.
And the jokes are interesting.
The jokes are interesting.
Are any of them rememberable and repeatable for on here?
Oh, they were all clean. Don't get me wrong with that one. But it's you suddenly sort of realise that that sense of humour at certain ages is definitely off the wall.
So I think we've probably covered quite a lot this year, but I mean, why are we promoting Code Club for kids? What's the really good skills that are developing when participating in it? I think we've kind of probably touched quite a lot, but is there any other ones that you want to kind of mention?
I
want to Phyllis. Okay, I'll come back in.
I thought you had one that you had on hand. That you were waiting for.
I thought you were just plucking it out there.
No, so just the skills that we see. I think the ones that sort of come to mind quickly for me are about creating confidence, creativity, storytelling, and peer support.
Yeah.
And I know we've kind of touched on all of that as we've spoken there, but I mean you're right. It can have that impression that it's just this sort of quiet little club where people will stare at a computer screen, and I've never known a club like that.
Yeah.
Everybody gets involved, mucks in, and suddenly all these ideas and whether it's from gaming or from YouTube things that have been watched or from stories they've read or whatever, this creativity appears and starts to translate onto the page in an individual way.
Yeah, that's a great thing to see that all that develop. Phyllis, is there anything you want to add to that?
It's the confidence. It's when you see them walking in their first week and they're so quiet and timid and trying to shrink into themselves and stay out of the way, and then by the end of the session they're taking over and showing everybody what to do and showing us what to do. Keep us right.
And I think that's probably something that I would say actually kind of transpires a lot across a lot of kind of library clubs that we do with kids. You do that, you see that kind of like little kind of shyness at first, and then by the end of it, or kind of as it's going on, the kids just grow, and that's one of the things that I think is a great thing about working with kids as well. You do get that kind of satisfaction of seeing the confidence levels grow and their skills develop basically right in front of you when you're working them week on week.
I think as well, certainly all the clubs I've worked with in our libraries, the youngsters come from a number of different schools.
Yeah.
And in their school they might be one of just one or two people who's kind of like in that particular mindset, or their sort of particular quiet reserves, and suddenly they find they're not the only one like that, and here's this similar group of people that are on their wavelength, or close by, and can develop, and it builds that confidence of meeting people you don't know as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think with Code Club, there's so many benefits for kids to take part in, and it's a lovely thing to see. And I think parents in particular will see a big difference in their kids whenever they take part as well. And for any parents out there who's listening who think it might be something that their kids might be interested in, what's the best way for them to kind of get involved in some way, Phyllis? What should the parents do to kind of get their kids along?
Just encourage them to come. Don't be frightened. We're not scary. It'll be fun, and it's not like school.
Yeah. Is there a best kind of contact way of getting in contact with you guys to kind of see about coming along to the club and things like that? Is there anything in particular they need to do for that way?
On our website, you'll get the links with the inquiry form, or if there's a link for a particular library, if you give the library a call, then they should be able to put you onto the list.
Fantastic, yeah. And I think it's definitely something that's going to kind of probably grow a little bit as time goes on, and it'll be great to see where Code Club goes. And on the webpage for it, we do have a wee kind of example of the kind of thing that you can kind of end up making, and the skills that they're kind of developing. And it's fantastic to kind of just see that visual thing about how it works and things like that. So it's definitely one that they can do. And as well, it's not just something they can do in the library too. Once they've got skills in the library, they can access the stuff for it from home and kind of play about with it at home as well, can't they, Hilary?
Yeah, absolutely no problem. We use a specific set of learning materials, but we do dip into other bits and pieces as well. And if they want to keep going with it at home, we'll always give them instructions about how parents can help them create accounts for themselves and work away and be very creative, and then come back and teach us 101 things we don't know how to do. It's great.
And then it's every day's a learning day after that, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So,
do you know what we do? I think we do learn as much as the youngsters each time we do this as well.
It's I think it's one of those things that you probably can never learn too much about it, and there's always something new to kind of learn about it as well. So it's a great activity. Moving on from that though, Phyllis, you've also had a family history group running for quite a while now in Cumbernauld Library, haven't you?
We have. We've had it running for over a year now, and it just keeps growing.
Yeah. And I think family history is one of those things. There's so many people who do get interested in it, and whenever you do get into it, it kind of becomes quite a major part of a hobby for you for learning stuff. What can people hope to discover if they by coming along to the group?
Well, the beauty of the group that we have in Cumbernauld is that it's peer-led. So similar to what happens in Code Club, somebody gets a niche and they start to specialise in particular types of searching. Like we've got somebody who there is nothing that they can't find in a census. So yeah, you get people specialising in different areas of the Ancestry institutional website. So we've got somebody who specialises in census information, somebody else who specialises in military information, and in the background I'm there making sure that they're clicking the right button on the mouse and doing all their basic IT skills.
I think family history, I think, is definitely one of those things for I think there is. It's a great thing to have as a collaborative thing as well, because it does kind of help find information out. And as soon as you kind of do start to discover little pieces of information, sometimes it's almost like a jigsaw puzzle where it all starts to kind of fall into place a little bit, which is a lovely thing. You can see people discover things as well, isn't it?
Well, that's it. It's a lot. It's just about the stories of how your ancestors lived and what they did, and the number of people we have in our group who have discovered commonalities, or family members who've gone to the same schools or who've lived in the same streets, and that's fascinating when you're watching all the information just unfolding.
Yeah, and from a library service point of view, one of the great things that we can offer is, as you mentioned earlier on, an Ancestry Institution, which is a free version of Ancestry that you can access using some of the computers within the library service, isn't it?
Yep. It gives you access to all of their database information. So you've got your census information, your birth, deaths and marriages, immigration records, parish records, poor law, pretty much anything that you could hope to find.
Yeah, and if you do discover stuff there, you can email it kind of home to yourself, so you've got a record of it, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's such a great tool, which I think the library service have got access to, which probably a lot of people don't kind of realise you can get access to in the library for free, because Ancestry, if you're kind of getting a personal subscription, it can be quite costly, especially if you kind of go some of the higher levels with access to it. And we can provide that for people to use when they're in the library. Probably do need to stress it is only available whenever you're using one of our computers, but it's a great kind of resource that we've got access to. And have you guys discovered any other kind of great tools that are good for helping out find out information online anywhere other than Ancestry? Is there any other sites or ones that you would kind of recommend people look at for if they're interested in family history?
Find My Past's a good one.
Yeah.
Or Family Search.
Yeah.
Is a good one too. And we're starting to see lots of results coming through on GeneNet. So people who are doing sort of the DNA testing, there's quite a lot of stuff coming up now that's linked into Ancestry, coming through GeneNet. So that's making things interesting for us as well.
Yeah,
I think as well, you talk about we've not done what Phyllis has done in terms of having a group, but we've done a bit of one-to-one support with people in terms of using Ancestry. And as Phyllis says, you kind of get people who kind of end up specialising in something. And one of the people, one of the families that did a wee bit of work earlier on this year, ended up going down. Their ancestor had served in the Merchant Navy, and there are people online who have done all this work, listing ships and who was on the cruise and where it all went when it went in and out. And so we ended up, I can't actually remember the database name, but I ended up in there looking at some fabulous stuff, and like that, the stories came out of people being on particular ships, as merchant ships during the war actually, and being torpedoed, and then finding them in Ancestry as the passenger list, because Ancestry's also got institutions also got access to lots of passenger lists.
Yeah.
And so we found them being landed in, I want to say Morocco or somewhere like that in the Mediterranean, and then the passenger manifest of them coming back into the south coast of England, and everybody who had survived that particular incident all sort of travelling back, and it's a fabulous way to lose an awful lot of time.
Yeah, I think that's one of the great things as well. Whenever you do find one of those kind of like stories, rather than just finding a person, but like whenever you find a kind of a story behind that person that you've not known, or you know a little bit about, or you know they've been a relative in the past or something like that, but whenever you discover a little bit about their actual life, about what they did or where they went, or you know that kind of really adds kind of depth to the kind of searching a little bit, doesn't it? And it really kind of makes it a much more fascinating thing to kind of discover. And one of the things that that we can kind of also kind of plug, I suppose, at this point is that as well as us being able to offer that kind of online support on either at Phyllis's group or kind of one-to-one with Hilary. Our colleagues at the North Lanarkshire Heritage Centre do quite a lot of work with family history, don't they, Hilary?
Yeah, and it just geographically, because they are just across the road from us here in Motherwell, I've had quite a good chat with them over the times, and both in Motherwell and in Airdrie, there are local history rooms that you can go in and have access to records. But our colleagues there are starting a family history 4-week course on Wednesdays from the 1st of November through November. And that's going to look at, it's sort of 4 weeks as a kind of introduction to how to start researching your family tree, looking at the cemetery and the poor law records, and other sort of archives registers that are there for that as well. And then Phyllis has also mentioned a whole lot of the other online sites, so they'll spend a week looking at online resources. And then one of the ones that's also just so invaluable when you keep looking at documents, reading old handwriting.
Yeah.
And trying to be able to decipher what is on the page, and so the team there are fabulous. As I say, I've done a little bit of work with them. So that 4-week course starts at the beginning of November. There are limited places, so you need to book through the Heritage Centre, and there's a small charge for the 4 weeks on it as well.
And I think in particular, I have done quite a lot of family history research for myself as well, and the handwriting thing is definitely something that is a challenge. So that particular session with them, I'm sure, would be kind of almost invaluable, really. And Vibke's who runs a lot of the stuff there is very good at kind of really kind of tell me. I will fully admit I have asked her some things in the past to kind of try and help me out a little bit with what it might say, and she's been able to help me out. So it's definitely of course, I think a lot of people who are really kind of interested in it would really find something, get real something out of it, kind of taking part in that course.
It gives you a really good basis to start from. If it is completely new to you, and again, it's the same as happens with the code clubs. You go to that, you're going to start making these connections with other people, and people who have got little bits of knowledge about this particular area or that particular style, that type of records, and you build up that community of people who can help you.
Yeah, definitely. And the other part to the sort of digital team is kind of some of the kind of building some basic IT skills and improving IT skills and things like that. For anyone who's maybe looking to brush up on their IT skills, Hilary, what can we look to offer them with things like the ICDL and things like that?
So there are two kind of main routes that we take. One is somebody just wants to brush up on their skills and isn't worried about getting any sort of qualifications, but just time to refresh, because IT stuff, technology moves on so fast at the moment, and even something like Microsoft Word, which has been around for a long time, there's lots of new features. It just keeps changing. So we will do, our digital team will do some one-on-one support. We'll do sort of small group support with people, and looking at things like Learn My Way or the GCF site, just to kind of get a good basis. Maybe it's actually, as I had last week, somebody who just needed a bit of help with one particular component. So somebody who was being asked to give a presentation as part of an interview panel, and just needed a wee refresher on how things were working in PowerPoint. So we spent an hour and a half with them doing that.
Yeah.
The other route, though, that we find is that people look to get a formal qualification. And in that case, we offer what used to be known as ECDL. People probably recognise it as ECDL, but it has changed its name in the last couple of years to ICDL. I don't know about Phyllis, but it always takes me 2 or 3 attempts to actually remember to call it that and write it down like that. So if anybody from BCS is listening, I'm sorry, but I will get there, honest. It's quite good because it's a way of being able to work through a lot of the Microsoft Office suite and get a kind of core level of skill, so that again it comes back to confidence, that you've got the confidence to go and move around it, to create documents and just use them generally. But we also take it through to advanced levels, so people who are confident using your sort of day-to-day features. But if you think about Word, for example, when you get onto the advanced level, we're embedding tables, we're bringing in tables of contents, we're putting in referencing, that sort of thing. And when it comes to Excel, it's about using a whole lot more of the functionality that's involved there, about creating pivot charts and spark lines, and just doing more, interrogating the data more with it. And a lot of people at the moment, I think for a long time Excel kind of just trundled along, but in the last, I would say, couple of years, with the bigger push to sort of data analysis, Excel's coming back into its own. And that's where sometimes some people will come back to us and say, I just need a wee refresher of all the sorts of things that it can do. And we're never going to show you everything, even on the ICDL courses, but it gives you a few more ideas of the sorts of things it can do, and that jumping off point to go and look at the bits that you actually need to be able to use. So it's a good way either to get certificates to move into employment, or to change and move up in employment.
Yeah, and if people to enrol in that course, they can work on it from home as well as in the library as well, isn't it? Once they sign up, they've got access to the materials through our kind of online sites and stuff like that.
Yeah, so mixture of printed and online resources, which people can come into the library and use, so that they've got access to the software here without having to pay for it. Or if you've got access to the software elsewhere, absolutely sit and work on it when it works for you. One of the things we've always done is this kind of open, flexible learning is exactly that. It's learning at times that suit you, when it suits you.
Yeah.
And so if that means that, it's get the children off to bed and take an hour twice a week at 9-10 o'clock at night, and do a wee bit, or doing it mid-morning, mid-afternoon, it's there when it suits you, in a way that suits you, and we wrap the support around it. Although I'm going to put it out here right now, a lot of support at 11 o'clock at night, that's not my speciality.
Office hours only.
But it's actually, again, one of these places where COVID has actually also changed the landscape slightly, because previously we always did, regardless of whether you did the learning at home or away from school, you always had to come on site to do the exams with us, if you're going down the formal qualifications route. But as a result of the way learning changed during COVID, we can now even do that remotely as well. So it means that, if somebody is working at other hours, or maybe doesn't find it particularly easy to come into a branch, we've got ways and means of supporting this learning in different ways. So we're always going to look and see how we can do it, whether it's on a Teams call, or email support, or I've kind of recorded sort of little screen talk-through videos and uploaded them, so somebody can get access to those, looking at a specific problem that they've got and so on. So it works well.
Yeah, and it's if anyone has listened to this and thinking that it's something they're interested in, what's the best way for them to kind of look at getting enrolled in one of those courses?
Probably the easiest way to get us is to email us on login-to-learn@northland.gov.uk. But of course, you can always pick up the phone to the branches in Motherwell, Wishaw, Coatbridge, and Cumbernauld. I'm frantically trying to get those in the right order, and that message will get passed back on to us. What I will put out there just now as well is the course does attract a cost. We do have to charge for this one. And at times there is government funding through the individual training accounts. At the moment, that funding stream is on pause, but we can always look at ways of getting people to explore other funding options, pay it up over time, and also just sort of say, someday as well, keep an eye on that funding stream. But come and talk to us, because there's things we can do in terms of free learning as well, to kind of brush up the skills, but not necessarily get the paid qualification out of it too.
And am I right in thinking, I'm trying to think back when I did the ECDL version of the ICDL, am I right in thinking that there's also kind of quite a long time frame in order to kind of get it all done? It's you can kind of do it at your own pace, but it's not, you've not only got like a month to do it. It's
No,
there's
no.
quite a long time.
Yeah, so the awarding body, BCS, give us 3 years from your first exam pass to do it. If you're on a funding stream, we're going to encourage you to get through it in that sort of funding stream. And I know from my own kind of learning that often you do better and get through it better if you sort of set that and have somebody pushing you on those timescales. We strongly encourage people to kind of try and do it over the course of a year, particularly if they're doing 7 modules.
Yeah.
But that, you can do that by giving yourself 4 weeks per module and some holiday time in there, and get through it. But I've also known people who've had some really good skills and who've just needed to get qualification, who've done it in 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah, that's the thing, and it does offer that flexibility where if you do kind of know it quite well, but you want to get the formal qualification, you kind of sort of rattle through it quite fairly quickly. Or if you do need that bit of extra time, you can kind of take your time kind of learning it and getting to know it right and stuff like that. And it is I mean, you mentioned there is a cost to attach to it, but that is partly because it is an internationally recognised IT qualification, isn't it? It's not just a kind of like North Lanarkshire Libraries course. It's an internationally recognised qualification.
That's it, and that's been the difference between the ECDL and the ICDL. We went from a European recognised qualification to the international version, and so if you've got this and you travel elsewhere and you can prove to to an employer that you've got this ICDL, it is recognised worldwide. So from that perspective as well, it's great just to have that in your skills armory, if you like.
Yeah, and so it's always going to look nice on the CV to make sure that you've got it, and you can prove that you know what Microsoft Office is rather than just say you know what Microsoft Office is.
And or also feel confident enough that you can bluff your way through the bits that you don't know too well.
Yeah, there's always that as well. Yeah. So, is there anything else you guys have been working on recently that you want to bring up to at this point, or is it all kind of still a bit under wraps and secretive and things like that? Phyllis, have you got anything you want to kind of highlight that's coming in the near future?
I think we've got a few things coming up in the near future, but Hilary might send me daggers through the screen.
No. Go ahead on these ones. I think some of it we can definitely talk about at this stage.
We're working on some SQA courses at the moment. Yeah. So we're hoping to have them up and running within the next few weeks. Things are moving apace. Fantastic. So we've been concentrating on them quite a lot. And that'll cover I'm ashamed, Hilary, to admit I can't remember the name of the course. I do know it covers e-safety.
Yeah, so we're looking at a course that attracts an SQA qualification in internet safety, but we're also kind of mashing it up with another BCS course on e-safety. So yeah, we're at the stage of hopefully running our first pilot candidates through it in the next few weeks. Not the sort of thing that everybody will be able to kind of do in just a few weeks, but we're using our digital assistants as cannon fodder on this one, guinea pigs on this one. And that's the beauty with all these qualifications actually is that you can come to it with what we would term prior knowledge. And do it fast, or you can come to it with little or no knowledge and we'll take your time with it as well. So there's a few kind of new qualifications that we've been looking at for a while and just
we've seized the day.
We've seized the day. I think because that sort of ties into what else I'm working on. So obviously we've alluded to it several times on podcasts over the last several years, but the refurbishment works at Motherwell have continue the pace, and now that
closer and closer.
we're inching closer to completion, but we now have access to the top floor again from a staff perspective, and there are some very, very exciting things happening in the next few weeks here, which I'm not going to talk too much about, but there's a whole lot of new stuff coming here, and it does mean that for the first time in quite a while, we will actually have some space to run groups here in Motherwell again, and so that gave that was the final sort of rocket to actually pull together these other course materials.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And so, I mean, I think it's quite clear that there's lots and lots of fantastic digital activities that are running throughout our libraries, and you can get involved in one way or another, whether it be a kids code club or kind of discovering your family history or getting a formal qualification and things like that. So there's lots and lots of really fun stuff going on that really kind of benefit the community in a wider sense. And I think that's a great thing for us to kind of sort of shout out a little bit about. So thank you guys for coming and talking about that. But I'm not going to let you escape just yet, because I do want to kind of ask you a little bit of a book question. We've been talking very, very digitally, I know that you two are both kind of avid readers who probably sometimes we struggle a little bit to get reading time, like myself a little bit. But I do know you've always got interesting books that you guys are reading. So I thought I would get a little bit of a kind of what are you reading moment out of you before we finish up. So Phyllis, what have you been reading recently? Because you always whenever we do podcasting, you always kind of tend to have a really interesting book that's out of left field a little bit from what everyone else tends to read.
Well, at the moment, I'm reading book 10 of the Mayette series by Amelia Finn. So that's Sinful Memory. They're quite similar to the Scarpetta books that Patricia Cornwell wrote, but they're not just as long. They are just as interesting, and you do get that bit for like the cerebrospinal fluids leaking out of the body just as you're having your tea at lunchtime. That seems to always be perfectly timed for when you're eating. But with them not being as long, it means you can rattle through them a lot quicker as well. So I book 10 of that series, and I would highly recommend it.
Fantastic. How many books are in the series, do you happen to know?
There's 10 so far.
Right, so you're on the latest one then?
I'm on the latest one.
Fantastic. Hilary, what about yourself? What have you been reading recently?
I kind of have pulled myself through a non-fiction book about immune systems. So, but don't worry, I'm not going to recommend that one at the moment. To like Phyllis, actually, I've sort of had a little crime spell in terms of reading around that as well, because I do find when I'm pulling myself through something non-fiction, something nice and light sort of crime, like the gory crime kind of works as well. So two quick recommendations. One, Carol Ramsey's The Devil's Stone.
Yeah.
It's another Tart Noir title. First ones I'd read from this line, and it's a Glasgow DCI who gets in a bit of trouble in Glasgow, but ends up getting sent up to a small Highland village where there's been this sort of murder of a very wealthy family, but there's some suspicions of sort of satanic rituals in the way that they've murdered them, and then left the bodies laid out in a specific way, and there's this devil's stone that is a sort of family heirloom that's kind of gone missing, but there's a whole lot of mythology about it in the local community, and the local police force kind of maybe made their minds up a little bit too quickly about who's involved and why, and then some of them start to go missing. And so she's sort of sent up to investigate, and it reminds me actually a bit of J.D. Kirk's sort of Highlands crime series as well, but maybe without quite as much twisted gruesomeness as Kirk has. But the other one, the other one that I've really enjoyed recently actually is one that's not out yet. I managed to get hold of an early copy, but it's called The List of Suspicious Things by Jenny Godfrey. It's coming out just in the turn of the year, I think February next year. And it's set in 1979 in Yorkshire around the Yorkshire Ripper.
Right.
And the communities around that, but I find it really fascinating because it's told from the story really from children, but it touches on sort of that sort of spell just at the turn from Labour to New Conservative Thatcher governments, the changing and the start of the decline of the kind of real mining industry, but the racism and reaction to people that's involved in it. It's a real time capsule piece, but it's got a lot. It's got the crime element to it as well. So it's one to look out for in the future. And I'm confident it will be on our shelves in February. So have a look for that one as it comes out.
Fantastic. That sounds as if it's a good one to watch out for and possibly get reservations in the next couple of months when it appears on our catalogue and things like that.
Absolutely.
So thank you guys. That was great kind of hearing from you guys a little bit additional and getting some fantastic little bit reviews there, recommendations there at the end as well. So thank you for coming and chatting with me today.
Thanks for having us.
So there you go, guys. I hope you've enjoyed listening to what Phyllis and Hilary had to say about what's been going on with the digital team of late. I think some of the activities that they have got going on, in particular, I really love the Code Club stuff that's been going on. And yeah, if you do check out our website, you will be able to see an example of what has been happening there with the Code Club team, the Code Club groups that we've got up and running at the moment. So you'll be able to kind of see that in action for yourself and kind of see what your kids can learn after they come along to Code Club as well, which is a great activity to get involved in. That is all for us for now, guys. We have got some big things in the near future which to watch out for. We've not got anything out about it just yet, but Book Scotland is just around the corner and we have got a fantastic lineup of events coming which we will confirm for you guys very soon, and it's very exciting. So do watch out for those announcements and we will get all that information out to you very soon, and you can take part in some of the Book Week Scotland events that we have got happening, and it is going to be a fantastic week to look forward to in November, so do watch out for that. But that's all for now, guys. Do watch out for another episode of the Bees Book editions of our podcast coming out next week as well, and catch that, and you will hear Paddy and Jenny recommending even more fantastic books for you guys to check out and read. But for me just now, guys, that's all for me. Bye, guys.